Any author can start a book with a brother and a sister trying to outdo each other, but only Avanti Centrae will have that sibling rivalry skiing down slopes at Olympic speeds. Avanti combines her tech savvy as a former Silicon Valley exec with her extensive world travels to create her VanOps thriller series. Today, we're talking about her latest release, which released yesterday, I believe.
It did.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Doomsday Medallion,
Medallion.
which is the third in the series. So welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents, author interviews, and welcome Avanti. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Sharon. I'm thrilled. And it's been such a blast to be a Blackbird for, since it was founded. I have really enjoyed getting to know all of the Blackbird writers. And I really appreciate you having me today to talk about the VanOps series.
Yeah, it's a great series. Yeah, wow. It's one of those where when you pick it up, you don't put it back down again.
I've heard people, have burned dinner. Just one more chapter. Oh shoot, dinner. Yeah.
I did Lost Powers as an audiobook, and I drove right past my exit. Just like, it's exciting. Yeah. So that's a little bit of
can't get a better endorsement than that. Thank you.
And a couple of times I may have done it on purpose, but it's like must finish chapter.
Driving around the street, just one more chapter.
So the book opens with this awesome skiing down Northern California mountains. So I have to open the interview with, do you ski?
I cross country ski. I grew up in Northeast Indiana, and I think I learned to water ski when I was 6. I remember being about this big and behind the boat, trying to get up on 2 little water skis, and just had a blast water skiing as a youth and doing cross country skis. And then when I moved to California after college, I did attempt downhill skiing a couple of times, and it scared the bejesus out of me because I wasn't very good. And I would try to stop, and I'd be doing, whatever that thing is where you're trying to stop, and just failed pretty miserably, and I'm sure I still have some bumps and bruises from it. But Maddie and Will are skiers. Maddie, who is these are the 2 main protagonists in the VanOps series, and Maddie missed the Olympics by this much because she and Will were actually having an argument, and we go into that backstory in one of the earlier books. But the Doomsday Medallion opens with the 2 of them racing down the mountain. They're celebrating Maddie's completion of her VanOps training, and they're up there. She's adopted a 6-year-old boy, and she's always wanted to teach him to ski because she grew up on skis. The 2 of them grew up in the Lake Tahoe area and have skied every mountain in the region. And she, of course, got really, really good at skiing. And Will did as well. And so I thought it was a great way to illustrate the sibling rivalry between the 2 of them.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, you could just have somebody bickering, but this is so much better. and like all your books, it starts off with sort of this roller coaster action stuff's happening, so it really sets the stage well for everything else.
I like to grab people's attention.
This does it, absolutely. Your books range all over the world. You have clues from different cultures and different historical sites. So I just as a fellow author, I have to ask, where do your ideas start? Where do you start with your plot? Do you see something and be like, okay, that's something's there, I'm gonna spread it out all of this way, or what do you do?
What do I do? How does that magic work? I wonder that sometimes myself. But in general,
to keep track of.
I know. And in general, I liken it to building a house, right? Where, you get an idea that you want to build a house, but you sort of have to figure out, okay, am I going to build a McMansion or a tiny house, right? And so that's where we start with the genre right? So we know that we're operating as a thriller within this sort of, intrigue, mystery, science and mystery kind of genre, subgenre of the genre. And then I put my feelers out for ideas when it's time to start writing a new book. And those ideas can come from a variety of ways. With an established series, what I've been finding is that it's fun to figure out, to kind of delve a little more into the characters. So with my stories, I like to not just have that nonstop action, but as you noted, I like to have some good character conflict too. And nobody conflicts more than twins. My mother and my aunt are twins, and you should see them do this all the time. So with this one, I started thinking about their backstory. And one of the biggest events of their life was when their mother died when they were 6. And so I kind of wanted to rip the scab off of that wound and dig a little deeper and think about, okay, so was mom's death really an accident? Could it have been something else? So I started going down that path. And then I also wanted to delve a little bit more into the backstory of VanOps. Where did it come from? We know it's an ultra Black organization with roots in the 70s, but before this book, I really hadn't delved a whole lot into that past. So I knew I wanted to dig into both of those things. And the VanOps history had its origins with some of the CIA's true life experiments. Okay. And they were delving into all kinds of paranormal activities back in the 70s. They were looking at remote viewing and remote killing and trying to figure out how they could weaponize parapsychology. And so with all that, as I started so it's sort of, I don't know, maybe like making a soup or something, you start adding a little of this and a little of that, and then you're like, oh, but I need more of this. And then somewhere along the way, because I like that history element in my story soups, I was like, who could I bring forth from history that would help tie all this stuff together? And when I stumbled upon the idea of using Nostradamus to tie it all together, I was like, oh, that's perfect. And so then it's building up more of the plans for the house, right? Trying to figure out, okay, then, does the master bedroom go over here, over there, and some of that. So then it just starts to build once, I have some of the basic building blocks.
All right, so you've just brought up Nostradamus. Sorry,
couldn't help it.
So you have a little bit of prescience in all of your books. So my question is, do you have any specific inspiration for that? Like you said, your mother and your aunt are twins. Do they ever read each other's minds, kinds of thing?
One would think they do, but yeah, that has always fascinated me. Just the whole way to communicate that science can't explain. And I think I read a mystery novel when I was really young where the twins were able to read each other's minds, and I've been fascinated with that ever since. And I've studied yoga for a really long time, and I'm aware that there's some spiritual teachers and healers that can do things that us mere mortals cannot. And I've had a couple of good friends that have had some experiences that are not part of our normal day to day. So a variety of things has me just fascinated with the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I actually am a certified yoga teacher. I have a 200-hour and a 500-hour certification.
In what subdiscipline?
My teachers were para yoga, but I'm not in a specific path, so just sort of hatha yoga. You have to do like 900 if you're going to be in a specific discipline, or 1100. It depends.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, yeah, everything you learn, it's like you're getting a little bit closer to that inner power that you talk about, that Maddie is so good at harnessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love reading about that, because it's like, oh yeah, that's Maybe
Mhm.
someday we can all get there if we concentrate and don't get distracted.
Exactly. Right. Yes, we have to listen and feel the power.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the thing. Um, um, listening is easier when there's not a bunch of stuff around, but you're so much better at it if you can do it when there's a bunch of stuff around.
Well,
That's why Maddie
exactly.
is so impressive.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about writing her as a character is because she is an Aikido black belt. That's her background. She started studying that in high school, and she's now in her early 30s, and so she's got over a decade under her belt and has become a black belt. And it's the martial arts has also always fascinated me, and I've also meditated for most of my life. And so I'm able to pull in, a few little tidbits from my own experience as well here and there. But I really like that she's able to bring in that marriage of East and West to use her desire to bring about peaceful resolutions, which is different than a lot of action thrillers, where the guys just want to kill everything, right?
Right, exactly.
No, Maddie doesn't want to kill anything. She just wants to bring about, peaceful resolution. And sometimes that means stopping the bad guys, right? Because the bad guys are often hell bent on violence. And so it's neat to see her learn about using her inner power and being able to focus that when there are bullets flying.
Actually, it's one of the reasons I really appreciate Maddie is because she is peaceful and distinctly feminine while still being totally kick-ass, which
Yeah.
is a lot of times when people are like, she's a strong female, she's basically just written as a guy with a
Mm-hmm.
girl's name, but that's not Maddie at all. She's wonderful.
She is a lot of fun. She's really into her hair for people who haven't yet, read about Maddie. She's got hair a lot like yours, actually, long and black and beautiful, and she loves it. And a couple books ago, she had to get it, almost shaved off, and she was just traumatized by this experience. And she's just so grateful that it's now grown back to shoulder level.
When you're used to that hair, it means a lot to you.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as anyone who's listening to this can tell, at this point, you research a lot. So covert operations, ancient artifacts, foreign cultures, world travels. Which do you like to deep dive on the most?
I love it all, but what I really love the most is when it all kind of starts to come together, right? So we were talking a little bit earlier about how did I plot this book, and I had this idea for Nostradamus. Well, I really had never studied Nostradamus, and so as I started to deep dive into Nostradamus, all of these little things kind of came together. So, for instance, many people know that he made predictions. They may not know that he did them in a way where he created like 4-line quatrains, is what they were called, and he used a mix of languages. So not just French, but he would throw in Italian, etc., and he would change up the words. He lived during the Inquisition. Right?
Oh,
Think about that. This
burn at the
guy is
stake.
making
Yeah.
crazy predictions that are coming true during the Inquisition. So he had to hide some of his meanings so that the big scary guys wouldn't come after him and cut his head off or burn him alive. So that was kind of a neat, little like, oh, wow. So, I can do that in my book too, because he did it in real life. And how cool is that? The other really cool thing that I found when I was researching him is that he had a small walnut box that he bequeathed to his children.
Mhm.
And to this day, nobody knows what was in it. Right. So I'm like, bingo. So
It's a
this is going to
treasure.
have, a prominent place in the story. So I just love it when I can bring in real life facts like that just completely tie into where I want to take the story. So that's my favorite part. All the other stuff is great and interesting, and it's really fun to pretend you're in some setting, or to remind myself if I've had the opportunity to be in the south of France, like I've been to Marseille. And so it's really fun to be able to research it again and go, oh yeah, I was there and this was great and I remember this and that. But it's super fun when all those little facts kind of start to come together in a story.
Oh yeah, that just sounds amazing. And I've read blog posts of yours before where you talked about what you take that's real, and then how you just take mostly real and just push it a little into the fantastic to meet your story goals. And it has me researching stuff all the time, and it's like, that's real. And I just get so excited when
yeah, I really love the idea. Part of what I wanted to do with this whole series was everyday magic, right? So I've been a fan of fantasy adventure for a long time. But one of the things that I really love about like James Rollins, for instance, is he brings in, just a little bit of magic to where you're not quite sure, is that real or is that not real? And, as we were talking about earlier with, twin telepathy and some of these things, there's a lot that goes on in this world that really happens that science just can't explain. Right. And so I wanted the VanOps team to be chartered with digging into some of that stuff, because there's a lot, right? And so there's tons of material to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's see. We have talked about some martial arts. Okay, so I know you have 2 German Shepherds.
A German Shepherd and a Chow Shepherd mix. Yes.
All right. And yeah, I've seen pictures on Twitter. Gorgeous. But in this book, you have a gecko, and you make that gecko so darn appealing. And I wondered, do you have any kind of inspiration for Fleck the gecko?
Just my dogs and my cat. I've never had a gecko. I have a number of friends who are into herps, and living in Northern California, we have just in our yard, we have a ton of all kinds of really cool lizards, alligator lizards, and a variety of lizards that are sort of fun to watch what they do. Sometimes they do little push-ups, on a rock in the sun. And my mom lives in Florida, and they have a bunch of chameleons down there. But I've never personally gotten to really know a gecko like Avril gets to know her gecko Fleck. So that's from my imagination.
Yeah, it's really fun. I have a friend who had an iguana for years, and he absolutely just loved that thing, and very much like Avril and Fleck.
Yeah, it's great. She sticks him in her pocket and takes him around places and keeps him warm. And I have a couple of friends who have geckos who were able to keep me on the straight and narrow when it came to how to maintain your gecko. And one friend in particular suggested that he have spots, be a African fat-tailed gecko with spots, or a leopard gecko is him. And I think there's another one that's an African fat-tailed gecko. And so anyway, I've been blessed with a number of friends who have geckos who could fill me in on all the lives and times of geckos.
Of lizard raising. Pretty different than a dog, I would say.
Yeah.
All right. So finally, the next thing I want to ask you about is, what can we expect next from VanOps, which I know is not totally fair, because Doomsday Medallion came out this week, but
yep,
I'm also done with it, and was lucky enough to get an advanced reading copy, so I want to know when the next one's out. So
Oh, if only I could wave a magic wand and have another one ready to go tomorrow. Wouldn't that be great?
Oh,
But
that'd be so
it's a
great.
long process. It's a long process, and especially with all that research, it takes a while. So right now I'm throwing around some ideas, outlining a couple of different options. Haven't quite figured out which way we're going to go for the next one. I do have, for fans of this genre, a standalone that will probably come out before the next VanOps novel.
Okay. What's that
Yeah,
gonna be about?
it's called Kiss of the Cobra,
Ooh,
Cleopatra's
neat name.
Vendetta. Yeah, so it's about a husband and wife. She's a CEO and he is a special ops leader. And when his wife and 4-year-old daughter get kidnapped, he basically has to overturn the very pillars of Western civilization to get her back. So it's kind of a Taken meets Mission Impossible with a little bit of Handmaid's Tale thrown in.
All my favorites. Actually, my husband had never seen Taken, so we watched it last night. It was like, no,
Oh,
you must see this movie. You
yeah,
must.
you must. You must see this movie. Yeah, so that one will probably come out. So Gal Gadot's making a Cleopatra movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
good casting.
so
Yeah, and she would be a great Maddie.
she would be a great Maddie. And Maddie, if you or Gal, if you're listening, Maddie, you would make a great Maddie. So anyway, the book may come out about the same time as the movie. We'll see. I'm in conversations with my publisher about when that's going to happen.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
exciting. That's very exciting. Oh,
it is.
goody.
Yes, so there will be something.
Yay.
And in the meantime, my imagination is, furiously trying to figure out what the VanOps characters are up to next.
Excellent.
Something troubling.
I'm sure.
Yes.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for being here. And for those of you watching, thank you so much for joining us at Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you,
Thank
Avanti.
you, Sharon. It's been very much a pleasure.
Bye. Oh.
Oh.
Can't find the record button. Stop.